Finally, we're back with the chimney breast. I did promise we're going to show some videos with lining paper and some feature wallpapers, but first of all we've got to finish the filling. So I'm going to show you a little bit on how to do the filling in this video, and then the next video is going to be how to line it. Quick run through of some of the gear you'll need. Filling board and the hawk, and then you need your filling knives. Got a blade to mix my fillers, and my filler, I've got some polyfiller easy sand interior filler there. And for some of these deep holes to start off with, I've got this Old Plaster. It's really good stuff, this, for your first fill on deep holes. Dries pretty quick, and then you can top it off with a polyfiller, followed by a second fill with a polyfiller. Right. And for around some of the skirting board and the picture rail, basically where there's any movement in woodwork or big holes, I can use my expanding foam. Bin primer, that's for sealing the bare wood. Bit of methylated spirits. Knee pads, gloves, dust mask, sandpaper. This is P80, some PVA, some newspaper, what's this? Some P180, couple of buckets, cloth, something to pour your water out into your filler, and the overalls. What else do you need? This one out. There we go. And your flat brush. Right then. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand down the woodwork, the top edge, basically more or less where all the bare wood is. I'll just show you this top edge of the skirting board where the wood is bare. Now, to achieve that nice finish at the end, you better sand in this before you put your primer on it, because we actually scraped it with a wood scraper. So I'm going to sand it down using the P80 dust mask. You can also do the bottom of the wall. Then dust it off, and that's ready for a coat of bin primer. Once you've done all the woodwork like that, you're ready to seal the plaster with diluted PVA. The bin primer's dry now around the edge of the woodwork, so I'm going to seal the plaster with some diluted PVA. That's like milky water. And wipe any mess off. You don't have to wait for the PVA to dry completely before you start using the foam. So on the largest gaps on the skirting board and the picture rail, because I'm going to leave these corner beads, I'm just going to use the backing plaster and polyfiller, because there's not really any movement there. But skirting boards on the picture rail, there's more movement, so you can get a crack. Right, so bit of foam. In a well ventilated room, make sure you shake the can up, and you've got your newspaper, and you're wearing gloves. Just go around and put a little bit in each of these big holes. And the newspaper is there to clean the end of the nozzle, and you can leave it standing while you're doing something and it'll just drop out. The foam is cured now, so we're ready to cut it off. And what I use is one of my filling blades. I mean, some of it you can pull it off, and then the rest of it you find the level of the skirting board. Just slowly pull it across. And then on the wall, and then what you can do, I use an old screwdriver sometimes, because what you need to do is make sure you've got plenty of room for your filler. So any little bits you just remove. So the foam is mainly sat behind the skirting board, and again you want to push it down slightly, so you give yourself enough room to get a little bit of filler there. And you can have a bit of sandpaper with you as you go in. You just get that edge with the sand. It doesn't matter if you go back to bare wood. It's all making the surface smoother in the process. You may have to prime it again, but it's only a small touch up. And there you go. Right. So just needs dusting off that now, and then you're ready for your first fill. So I'm going to cut it all off, and then I'll show you doing the first fill with the undercoat plaster. Yep, definitely a little woof. Just before we start filling, these corner beads, usually they're pretty straight, because when they're put in, the person who's putting them in should use a spirit level or a plumb line to get them nice and straight. But I was just checking this one out with me plumb line. It's absolutely perfect. You couldn't get it any better. And the other one on the other side is as well. So with these corner beads, the edge of it there, on the 90-degree part, you always want to keep that bare wood. You don't build the filler up over the wood and round, because that's just defeating the straight object. Before you start to use your undercoat plaster on the deepest parts, you can wet it in first, because it will help the undercoat plaster to stick. This undercoat plaster dries pretty quick. You want it so it's quite coarse. What I use is a scraper or a filling knife to just push it in, and you've got to make sure you push it in. Keeping it off that face. Make sure you go over it a couple of times and push plenty in. And it's okay leaving it a little bit coarse like that, because the next filler will stick better. The other side. So make sure you get plenty in, and you push the filler in. There you go, let that dry. A bit more coarse. There you go. And then just go around filling all the other holes. This undercoat plaster's been drying now for about half an hour and it's gone off nicely. The next process is to clean it up a bit, ready for the next filler. So you can give it a bit of a scrape over, get rid of any excess filler over the edges and things like that. Any lumps. Last thing you want is when you're putting your next filler on is to be picking up lumps and it catching on areas, so you can give it and look over, and then you can wipe it over with a cloth. That's ready now for its next filler. I've mixed some polyfiller up and we're straight on with the polyfiller. It's not going to need much in that. That'll do it for the first one. You want to try and get it as smooth as you can. So, depending what you're filling, sometimes the best tool you can actually use is your finger, because it doesn't scratch things, and you can actually adjust how much filler you're putting on. So down that side there, I'm just going to use my fingers. Remembering not to leave loads of filler lumps to be sanded off. Across there I'm going to use my finger just to get some under that edge. Sometimes your filling knives can actually cut into the wood and make some marks, so it's easier to actually use your finger sometimes just to help get the filler right into that edge. Just to neaten it up with your blade. Blade. Better taking your time. Get this right, because this is the crucial part of this. I mean, what I'm trying to do here is just make it as smooth as I can, so then there's less cleaning off before the second fill. Can't have it looking like the moon and expect to put some more filler over the top and it be smooth. So just make sure it's nice and smooth. On the skirting board, it's a little bit more difficult. Sometimes you're better off filling the wall first, allowing it to go off a bit, and then come along and fill the top edge of the skirting board. Just do a bit of wall there. Not too bad at all, that. Just remembering to leave it as smooth as you can, because the last thing you want to be doing is loads of sanding with filler. That'll do for the first one. That's the first fill done now. So I'm not going to show you the second fill. I'll just show you a little bit at the bottom here where it's dried enough so I can show you basically what you do on your second fill. And that's tagging anything up. You've got to sand down this when it's dry, then look for any bits where you think it needs a little bit more filler and put it in. Filling's one of those things where certain areas will always need more than others, and you can build bits up. Some areas might only need one fill, some will need 3. So I'll just show you this skirting board, and then at the end of this video, the next one will be putting the lining paper on. So just along this bottom bit, you can see there's a little bit more filling needs doing. Now, using my finger, I can do that bottom edge. That is not too bad at all. There's a bit of a dip in there, so I'm going to put a little bit more on that bit. Again, it's all about fine tuning, getting things right. Anyway, I'm trying to do this on filler that's still a little bit wet, but you still get the idea, because when that dries, a light sand on that, and then it'll give you more of a sharper edge. Not too bad really. There you go. It's all about fine tuning until you're satisfied. And then even when you put your lining paper on, you can still do a bit more filling on top of the lining paper just to get rid of them bits that show up. That'll do.